Welcome back to another episode of the Speedrun. We are back on the London is Good, and we're going to continue on. We're going to play with the black pieces. So I think we're just going to stick to opening principles this time. We're just going to play some normal chess and not worry about a specific opening for the black pieces. And we're going to see how well we do against these 400s. Okay, so they break the knight out, so we're just going to defend. And I think we're just going to practice normally. And we're going to see what the opponent does and see how they play against just a normal opening, and we're going to help you develop some principles. Okay, so they might be going for the fried liver already. This is a very common opening where you try to get a fork early or a check on this square. And so we can either develop the knight, we can develop the bishop, but this is the Traxler variation, but it is actually lost according to the engine. We're just going to develop the knight here, and we're going to see if our opponent, no, they do not. So we're just going to bring our bishop out, and we're going to match because they did not play the fried liver. Okay, they play d3. They're actually doing very well, so I think we're just going to copy them here. We're going to play d6. Okay, so either that was a mouse slip or they did not realize that our pawn is covering the f4 square. They might have attempted to pin on g5, but we're just going to take the free piece. And it might have been an accident, but we take what we can get, and this will help you improve if you can just learn to utilize on mistakes, because oftentimes you might not even realize they blended a piece. It might just be sitting there. Okay, so they attack our pawn with g3, but that weakens the g2 square and the light squares along this diagonal here, and so there's no reason we can't just take it. If they decide to open up the rook, okay, they don't. If they were to decide, let's go back, if they were to decide to take like this, then we might not have castled yet because we don't want to go right into the line of the attack here with the queen and the rook potentially. But they didn't. They took the other way, so we're just going to castle. And we might look here and maybe play something like bishop g4 to pin the queen and put some pressure here. We're going to see what our opponent does next. We might even look at, again, same idea, get rid of this bishop on the edge. Maybe bishop e6. We'll see what the opponent does. Okay, so they play a3. So this is not really doing anything. They need to castle or do something. But instead, we're going to pin. The knight now cannot move, or we take the queen. Okay. So they decide to attack our bishop, but this doesn't really do anything. People get like one-minded ideas. They attack, but they don't see what we're going to do next. So we're just going to slide the bishop back. They may even try to continue attacking with a4, but instead they decide to try and kick the bishop out. So we are going to just take. They can take with the queen, and then I think we're going to put our bishop here, because the knight now cannot move, or we take the rook, and if the king decides to move, then of course that's just bad for them. They can't castle, because the queen can now no longer defend on this square, and so the only way to defend really is to move the king towards the knight, and that's really not a good idea, because we're just going to take, and then we're just going to start attacking. And we're going to see if they find this move. They don't. So this now comes with a check, and we're going to pick up the rook as well, because the queen moved out of the way to go and take a piece back. There's nowhere for them to go to defend. So we're just going to take. King now has to move, and we can pick up the rook right after. And then we're going to get all of our pieces into the game. Okay. So they decided to move there. They gave up the rook. Could they have gotten, okay, so they could have, a better move probably would have been king f2, because in doing so, if they went here, then the rook's now defending each other, and you can actually take back. But in this case, they block their own rook. So we can actually move our bishop all the way back and keep it. There's no need to let it die. We could have brought our knight in, but there's no reason. We might as well keep our bishop safe. Better to practice good principles. Okay. So they bring the rook here. They have a bunch of pawns. They might try to start just pushing, and a lot of people get scared, and they don't know what to do. But we're just going to bring our knight in. We're up material, so that means we want to trade. Best thing you can do is just trade down to a winning endgame, especially when you have plus 11 points of material extra. Okay, so we can sack if we want, but there's no need to. So we're just going to bring the bishop back. We're still attacking this bishop. Okay, so they just push again. They keep pushing, but we were going to do this anyways, so we're going to continue doing that. And they now have to take with the queen, which leaves this pawn undefended, and that comes with a check. So we're going to take. They have to move their king. You don't want to go here because that's a fork, but either way, we're going to be taking. So we can take, or we can bring our queen in, Or we can do something even better, which I think is d5, which attacks the queen and simultaneously defends the knight. There's no need to take this pawn yet. It's better to try and attack the queen here. And then I think I'm going to get my queen in, and we're going to try and get a checkmate here, or win some more material. Again, there's no need to fret over any of this. There's nothing happening. We're going to bring our queen in. Our king's perfectly safe. We're looking at this check right here because this is checkmate. And they continually ignore our threats, and they don't go for what we're looking for. So then instead, they decide to push this pawn to c4, and notice the knight, because we decided to keep it here rather than taking a free pawn by defending it, it allowed our queen to come in and give a check here. And the king cannot go anywhere, can't go forward, can't go back, and the queen cannot take, and we are perfectly safe. So this is just a checkmate. So what could our opponent have done differently? Let's go back to the beginning. And we start off fine. Our opponent actually does very well. A lot of people end up going for the Fred lever. And that is, let's just say I make a random move. If I do something like d6, you can take here. And it's a fork between the king and the rook, or the queen and the rook, sorry. So you'll end up moving your king, you lose a rook, and then the white just gets a big advantage. But instead, they actually play pretty well. This is fine. So fine. This, of course, is a blunder, as I said. But instead, a lot of times people will just go and try to pin. You can castle. You can bring this. You can, again, same idea. You can even try to attack the knight. A lot of things are equal. This is equal. If they take, it's actually good for you. They don't really want to take. It's better to keep applying the pressure until they are forced to do something. Because even if I do something like this, they can just slide back. And you don't want to do something like this. In this case, the computer says it's okay. A lot of the times you're pushing pawns on your king side, and you don't want to do that, especially if you're trying to castle that way. But instead, they blundered the bishop here, and so this was a pretty easy game. Again, they shouldn't be weakening this. This pawn is not doing anything. They don't need to attack it. Instead, they could have maybe just castled. That probably would have been better here. Either way, we're winning. We would have brought our bishop in, had an attack, but that's fine. We traded. And if they decide to do like this, it actually might not have been as good. The computer thinks it's okay because we're perfectly safe, but a lot of people get scared, bring something like this in, say I just do something like this. Now all of a sudden the queen's coming in and I just do this. I try to kick it out. Those aren't the best moves, but you get the idea. It's scary to deal with attack if you don't know what you're doing. Again, we got to here. So you actually can't do this move anymore. Well, you can, but there's a fork, but then you just take. And the bishop can move if they decide not to take. But even just doing this, the bishop now has an escape square. And then they're threatening this move. So I just don't think anything of it. All of a sudden, they have a fork. And so you want to just be careful at all times. Instead, we go for the more provocative move. We pin the knight. They decide to try and kick our bishop away. So we move it back. They kick the bishop out. Again, you don't really want to slide back here, because it's actually, even though it's weakening for them, our bishop is kind of stuck. It's not doing anything, so we might as well just get rid of the bishop. We trade, they take, but then that allows us, again, to bring our bishop in. And so the only move here would have been king d2, because it defends the knight, and if we take, it's still very bad for white, but it defends, and this knight defends this square. We're going to bring our queen in. It's bad, but that would have been the better option. Instead, they move their king. We take with check. And the better move would have been something like king f2, because you defend the rooks together so that when you take, you actually take back and you're only losing 2 points of material. Where instead, what the opponent did is they moved their king, we took, and it was just got from bad to worse. And so once we're up so much material, we defended our bishop, we just go for an attack. We slide the bishop back, we take the free pawn, and again, we could have taken this pawn, but the computer actually doesn't like it quite as much. You're still plus 10, but it doesn't matter because we're going to do d5 instead, which I think probably was one of the best moves, if not the best. We attack the queen. We trap the king in. They move the queen away. So we bring our queen in. And again, the opponent could have done a lot of things. Could have run their king, but either way, we'd have taken, and it's basically game over. But instead, they pushed a pawn, forgetting that the queen can come in with the knight defending, and it is checkmate. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this next episode, and like and subscribe. See you in the next one.